yet. So good evening, members, guests, teachers, and students. So great to have you. My name is Sandia Bayou, and I'm the Chief Development Officer here at the World Affairs Council of Greater Houston. It's our hope that you, your families, and everybody in your circle are doing well and staying healthy. Again, thank you for joining us today. I want to make sure that invite all of you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is where you can watch some of our recorded programs, look back as long as a year back, and this is where we'll be posting many of our upcoming sessions again. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And now I'm sure you will agree that more than ever, it is so important to stay connected, informed about what is happening, not only here in our city, but around the world. And we, the World Affairs Council of Greater Houston, bring foreign affairs speakers right in the comfort of your home. Before we start our tonight's dialogue, please allow me to share short programming notices. I want to make sure that you don't miss any of these fantastic opportunities. Next Tuesday, February 9th, we have a pleasure of hosting Princess Rima, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the United States. We will talk about the current bilateral Saudi-US relations and all the positive changes that are taking place within the kingdom. Also, she's the first Saudi ambassador in the world, and we have her again next week, the 9th. Our largest student event, Academic World Quest Trivia Night, taking place February 23rd. More than 50 schools of Houston's over 15 or so school districts are invited to participate and compete for the trophy and a chance to play at the national level. If there are any students in your life who would like to join us, please make sure you reach out to me or anybody at the council, and we'll make sure that we accommodate them. Again, that is February 23rd. And now one more very, very exclusive programming announcement. For Monday, March 8th, we have a pleasure to host, present, and you are really the first ones to know, an American business mogul, magnate, software developer, philanthropist, co-founder of Microsoft Corporation. I know you know where I'm going. Co-founder of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, chairman of so many other organizations here and globally. We are hosting Bill Gates. That is coming up on March 8th. And you can find the listing of all of these upcoming programs and many, many other activities on our website at wachouston.org. And now, please allow me to introduce a good friend of the council, George Gonzalez, who will have the pleasure of introducing our tonight's guest. George Gonzalez is a partner in the energy, mergers and acquisitions, and international practice groups in the Houston office of Haynes and Boone. He counsels U.S. and international businesses in general corporate law, with an emphasis on mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, corporate control matters, privately held companies, and international legal issues. George has negotiated on behalf of clients all over the world. Here's just a sampling of Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, Spain, Venezuela are just among some of those countries. George was also nationally recognized as one of the top 100 influential Hispanics in the U.S. in a Hispanic business magazine. Wow. And this is just some of the highlights, not all of them. George, what a pleasure and honor to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm very excited to have a chance to introduce Jamey Rootes. I've gotten to know Jamey at the Greater Houston Partnership, where he's a former chairman of the board of the Greater Houston Partnership and has really led many of the most important initiatives of the Greater Houston Partnership over time. Jamey has been one of Houston's leading executives for more than 2 decades. He currently serves as president of the Houston Texans and is responsible for all business functions of the club. Under his leadership, the Texans have consistently been recognized as one of the most valuable professional sports franchises, both in the NFL and globally. During Rootes' tenure, the Texans have earned many distinctions, including numerous Crystal Awards and most recently 2 American Business Awards for marketing excellence. Following the 2019 NFL season, the Texans extended their sellout game streak to 185 consecutive home games, a Houston NFL record. He also serves as president of Lone Star Sports and Entertainment, a sports management agency associated with the Texans. Lone Star has been a catalyst for some of Houston's most significant sporting events, including an annual college football bowl game and numerous international soccer matches. Many people may not realize this, but Jamey is a terrific soccer player. He played for Clemson, and he's a former president of the Columbia Crew Major League Soccer team. Very excited to have Jamey. Marianne, would you like to take it from here?
Yes, and George, Sandia, thank you both. We appreciate you. Jamey, welcome to the World Affairs Council.
It's great to be here. Marianne, thank you for the invitation, and Sandia and George, thank you for the kind introduction. It's really my pleasure.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a couple of weeks in coming. I've had the opportunity to read your book, The Winning Game Plan, and it's just reminded me of so many great refresher things that what leadership actually is and why it's important to be focused and to be considerate and respectful and really put some great principles in place. But I do want to start at the beginning. The Houston Texans, as George has mentioned, recognized as one of the most valuable sports teams in the NFL and globally, and you've been there since the beginning. You helped bring football back to Houston, creating a team that not only represents our city, but also a sports team that unifies us globally, because that's really a lot of what sports does. Let's start with your early career. You were a soccer player at Clemson. Now you're president of the Houston Texans. How did that happen? You were born in Georgia. I mean, you've been a little bit of everywhere. Maybe you could give us the short story of how you got here.
Yeah, so all I ever wanted to do was play professional sports, be a soccer player. But when I left Clemson, the opportunity to play in a professional league in the United States didn't exist. And so I'd never really thought about what I wanted to do for a career. I mean, I kind of thought college would go on forever. So I took a job at IBM, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot, learned about computers, learned about sales. And I got to tell you, anytime you have an opportunity to be part of a world-class sales organization, no matter what role you're in, it's going to be beneficial, because as you progress in an organization, you're not selling products anymore, you're selling ideas, and the same principles apply. But I was really unfulfilled, left to go back to graduate school at Indiana, and I knew I wanted to do one of two things. I wanted to either be a coach, soccer coach, or work in some type of sports business. So I did have the opportunity to coach at Indiana, get my MBA, work in the athletic department, and for the first time, have some hands-on experience in sports. And after those 2 years, it was really clear to me I needed to be in a sports business. But I didn't have an opportunity. And so I took a job at Procter & Gamble, not thinking that I would ever actually show up and be a brand manager, but I was going to go to the World Cup in '94 and work at the World Cup. And of course, somebody was going to offer me a job and I would go and do that. But it didn't happen. So it ended. I went to Procter & Gamble, and that was a great experience as well. Another great organization. Learned a lot about advertising, about strategy, business strategy, marketing, etc., and had made lots of relationships along the way. I would do an informational interview with anybody who would sit down and talk to me. And then I actually wound up with, about a year in, 2 opportunities. One was with Reebok to be their global category manager, which came from the person that I worked for at the World Cup. And then an opportunity in Major League Soccer to start one of the teams in the league. We had 10 teams we were going to launch. And Lamar Hunt had purchased the rights for 2 teams, for the Kansas City team and the Columbus team. So I got the opportunity to be the first employee and the general manager, eventually becoming the president and general manager of the Columbus Crew. I spent 5 years there. We built a really successful business from scratch, and it was really a thrilling experience. built the first soccer-specific stadium in the United States for an MLS franchise, which led to a building boom of stadiums. And we have one in Houston for the Houston Dynamo. And then I got a call from an executive recruiter in the sports industry. Her name's Buffy Philippel. She was one of the founding founders of executive recruiting in sports. It used to be you went from playing to being in the front office. And there's been this revolution over the last maybe 30 or 40 years of maybe 30 years of true sports professionals, folks that, it's not about what they did previously. They are business professionals leading sports organizations. And so she gave me the opportunity to come down and interview. There were only a few employees of the Texans at the time. I think one of the key things was, first of all, I'd known her for a number of years, and she knew a lot of people that I know. But secondly, there's not a lot of people who've started a professional sports franchise from a blank sheet of paper. And so I got the opportunity with Bob McNair. When I visited with Bob, I mean, he had me at a low, all of what he was made of that just fit. And so as 20 years later, it's been a wonderful run. The family has been just transformational for my family. They're great community citizens, incredibly philanthropic, supporting lots of organizations, not only in Houston, but across the country, things that are near and dear to their heart. And we've always operated the organization as being caretakers of a community asset. We have three things that are important to us. Win championships, because, you can't be a sports team unless you're trying to win, right? And so we invest everything we need to win, but it's necessary but not sufficient. Number two is creating memorable experiences for people. You mentioned about, sports brings people together. Houston's the most diverse city in America. And I believe nothing brings us together in Houston like the game of football. Between Monday and Saturday, we live our lives as individuals. On Sunday, we come together. We're one. We are Texans. And then number three, as George had mentioned, some of the things we've done across the community to provide leadership, whether that's starting soccer in Houston, or the college football bowl game, or supporting the United Way and the food bank and the Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCA. We just feel like we have an obligation to do great things for Houston. Houston has supported us so well. It's important for us to give back. Now, I promise future answers will be shorter, but this is an important one to set the foundation. I know you asked for a short answer, but next time I'll comply.
Well, I know I'm going to invite all of our guests to send in their questions on the Q&A tab. We're going to have a short online reception afterward where you're going to have an opportunity to ask some of your questions. I have some questions from the students. We're going to talk 2 minutes about what's happening in the organization today. But back to your book, I was really, really intrigued. And I know Bob McNair, and you also previously mentioned Lamar Hunt. Two amazing businessmen, very distinctly, they're different from each other in their styles. What did you most learn from Lamar Hunt, Bob McNair?
Yeah, so you mentioned that they're different. You're right. I observed that as well. In terms of stylistically, they are different. But the place that they're almost identical is at the core, their values, what's important to them. And that really made me feel comfortable because Lamar was a hero to me. And Bob became a hero to me. And I learned so much from both of them. And I put it in a nutshell. With Lamar, I got an MBA in sport management. He had been doing it for so long, and he took such an extreme interest. I mean, the Chiefs are going fine. The Kansas City team, yeah, he was involved, but he loved Columbus. I think he saw Columbus as the second opportunity to turn a city that was not a professional sports market into a professional sports market, like he did in Kansas City when he took the Dallas Texans and were the original sports franchise in Kansas City. And so I think it really appealed to him, and I'm so blessed that he did spend so much time, because I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And so he was always there for me with great ideas and helped me understand the fundamental principles of running a sports franchise. With Bob, it was like a second MBA. I mean, he was a brilliant businessman. Not only, certainly financially, he was a whiz, and it was so helpful for me to present financials to him. And, to begin with, he would give me 20 zingers and I would have to answer them. Then it went to 10, then it went to 5. And then I anticipated all of his questions. That's how you learn, is by somebody questioning what you're doing. And you go, next time, I'm not falling for that one, right? Next time I'm going to be prepared for that. So, and he also taught me a lot about being a father, being a husband, being a good community citizen. And all those things were just by observing the way that he conducted himself.
Two amazing icons from Texas. With so many books about management and leadership, what inspired you and to write a book about leadership? I was reminded of so many good principles that, quite honestly, you forget after you finish MBA school, right? How are you? What inspired you, and then maybe how are you applying some of these in this current, very unusual time of the pandemic?
So, Marianne, I think there are very few new ideas out there in the world. Usually it is a new take on an old idea, new packaging that might be more compelling for people. And the idea of reminding is so incredibly important. I mean, it's central to the way that I run the organization. Samuel Johnson said, people need to be reminded much more than they need to be instructed. When I'm dealing with my team, I'm never telling them anything that they don't already know. I'm just reminding them. I'm bringing it back up to the surface because they're really smart. They're really talented. And so this idea of reminding is so important. And so in terms of the principles, I think it is pretty compelling for people to think about a leadership environment as operating in 4 dimensions. I think people get caught up in 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them, managing up well, managing down well, managing out well, managing across well. But to truly be the best leader you can be, you have to excel in all 4. And when you're managing up, it's about trust. It's about the people. Everybody's got a boss. It's about whoever it is you're reporting to, that they trust you, that you give them bad news early and good news whenever, and that they leave you alone. They give you the latitude to do things the way that you want to do them. Also, when they trust you, it protects all the people that are working for you, that they don't feel the need to come down below where you are and create, ask questions and stir the pot. Really important. Managing down is all about clarity. The number one employee need that exists is, do I know what is expected of me every day? And the more clear a leader can be on who we are, what we're trying to get accomplished, what your role is, that's an incredible strength. Out is about being respected, because people, when I'm out in the community, they buy me first. And if they buy me, they think everybody else back at the office is exactly like me, which may or may not be the truth, but it's an important first step. And then across is about being a great teammate, that you're the kind of collaborator that other people seek out when opportunities exist. And if you can operate well at all 4 dimensions, you have a good shot at being a great leader.
Great answer. I'm going to go off script a little bit, go to one of our outside questions. You had the opportunity to meet and work with some incredible individuals. Outside of Bob and Lamar, who stands out to you?
The people that I've been able to be involved with that stand out to me. I'll tell you, I could go down a roster of all of the commercial partners that we have with the Houston Texans. And I'll just give you one. Mauricio Gutierrez, who's the head of NRG, an exceptional leader, a kind, compassionate, but very capable leader, a rare combination of those things. A guy who can get along with anybody, navigate any situation. So I've been blessed to have a massive Rolodex of people that I not only get a chance to work with and I respect, but they're my friends. They're people. I've always lived by the adage that I want to make my work friends my friends. First step is being friends. We can figure out the business later. If you and I can't get along, then it's not going to work. I've yet to find someone I can't get along with, right? But it has to start there first.
So you've been recognized as a leading CEO, Business Person of the Year. So whether it be through the Texans game or some of the incredible trade missions that I know you've been on, tell us some of your experiences promoting Houston and the Texans around the world.
Yeah, so one of my favorite is when we went to Mexico City, right? So we played a game on a Sunday night. I think we played the Titans. I got on a flight at 8 o'clock, got in midnight or 1 in the morning in Mexico City, had our first meeting at 8 a.m., and I'm like, why am I here, right? I'm a football guy, right? Nobody wants to listen to me. And I was vice chair of the partnership at the time. And we went and met with some energy leaders and talked for maybe 30 or 40 minutes. Then they started introducing everyone. And they got to me, and they went crazy. They're like, he's with the NFL, he's with the Texans. We love football. Everybody wanted to talk about who their favorite team was and who their favorite player was. Then we went to the mayor of Mexico City. And we had these translation things in our ears. And they talked a little bit. And then they said, he's president of the Houston Texans. The mayor of Mexico City starts singing the Houston Oilers fight song. And then he implored me. He said, you have to bring a game to Mexico City. And when I left, I was like, what a great opportunity for Houston to build this bridge that can last for, forever between Houston and Mexico, our number one most important trade partner. And so I went to the league. I said, we'd like to go to Mexico. We'd love to be the first to be on Monday Night Football. And they made it happen. And so we played the Raiders. The game itself was not great. We didn't win. But the opportunity for us to build these partnerships that can be so important to our community was really a blessing.
That's amazing. And I know sports teams now are expected to do more than just win games, right? What conversations are going on in the boardroom of the Texans organization today?
Well, I tell you, I think we've been enlightened from the beginning. When we first started the team, we started with our 3 imperatives that I mentioned earlier about winning championships, creating memorable experiences, and doing great things for Houston. And I think as long as we can continue to execute upon those with excellence, I think we can forever be a great franchise.
So I know you take a hands-on approach in many of the business functions of the club, and you also write about working on your business and not in your business. Boy, that hit home. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I did it early on. When you're starting something from scratch, by necessity, the leader has to be hands-on in the details. There can only be one vision, right? And so I did that in Columbus. And then I left Columbus, and it was still kind of in a startup phase. And then I came to Houston, and I had that same mentality. Well, 4 or 5 years in, I've got a very talented team. And they were like, we don't need you here anymore, okay? We want to be able to make our own decisions, right? We want to take it where we give us the general game plan, and we'll go out and execute. And so for me, that was really a paradigm shift. And I had to elevate my thinking. Rather than the day-to-day, I had to think about tomorrow. Do the things that none of them can do in terms of anticipating the opportunities and threats that might exist in the marketplace. And it was really, it was tough. It was a very difficult transformation for me because I had to give up a lot of things that I really liked to do. But it was an aha moment, a paradigm shift that was important. What got me there as the startup guy was not going to get me here. And so I had to start working on, being the out guy, the guy outside of the organization. So you might ask, why am I so actively involved in the community? Well, so that my folks can focus on working on the business, working in the business. I can work on the business by being so in the community and representing the organization. And that's just one example of the things that as you progress as a leader and you elevate yourself out of that day-to-day, that you've got to stay focused on. And it makes for, it's not only is it good for me because I had new challenges, it's great for all of my folks because they now have a level of autonomy that wouldn't exist if I was constantly involved with what they're doing.
You do so much, Jamey, for our community, for Houston. You also serve as the president of a sports and entertainment agency. how do you stay focused and how do you stay disciplined?
Well, I think we have a very rigorous process throughout the year, and most of it is focused on certain intervals getting better. How do we get better? How do we do what we do better? And then we put that into a plan, and we go out and we execute it. And so that's the discipline. There's rigor in our planning and our execution process. And we have a Texans way that just gets great results consistently. We know what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. We know what creates value. We know what is a distraction. And we've got great people. There are two things when I think about the Texans. If you think of it in terms of a machine, there are two things that are, above all else, critical. One is the people that work within our organization. They are extraordinary. Trust me. I mean, people see me all the time. I'm nothing without them. And then the relationships that we have, the business relationships and the community relationships. So those are the cogs in the Texans machine that we have consistently protected at all costs. And those are the things that fuel the success of the organization.
We're going to talk about the Texans more specifically here in a minute, but I am just amazed at how the Houston Texans are able to create such amazing tailgating experiences. How are you intentionally creating what you call those raving fans? And they are raving.
Well, I've always believed that what makes for success from a marketing perspective is figuring out what people want. Sometimes they don't know what they want. They don't express it. They don't say, I want A, B, and C. But you have to listen. You have to understand the voice of your consumer, your customer. Listen and then bust your tail giving it to them. That's what fuels success. You mentioned about the tailgating environment. Yeah, and that we created it. The secret is they created it. We just gave them the platform. We knew it was important to them. And then we told them before we ever played our first game, the Texans are the best tailgaters on the planet. And they made it happen. And it's wonderful. It's such a great bonding experience. It takes what is a 3-hour interaction to an 8-hour celebration. And so that is one of the ways that we create raving fans. But I think the key for us is our ability to listen to our customers and then respond and let them know that we've responded. That's it's simple, but if you do that consistently day after day, that's how you build loyalty. So, and I will say our rewards program within the team is called our Impact Awards. Okay. And it's all about creating raving fans. And you can't get an award without a story. So every time we provide somebody with $250 or $500, the money is, for me, really irrelevant. It's the opportunity to tell the story, to celebrate my teammate, to show everyone what does it take to be a great Texan. If you do that, you'll be recognized. Over this COVID window, we've done $135,000 in Impact Awards in increments of $250 and $500. That is a lot of awards. Wow. But, you get what you expect, what you inspect, and what you reward. So you have to set the expectations clear in your communication of who we are, how we operate. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to have a culture of appreciation. And it starts with me. It doesn't end with me. But if I don't model that behavior, no one else will. So I don't let an opportunity go by to celebrate what somebody's done to create a raving fan, because if you let the opportunity go by, it's gone like that, and you never get it back. You have to celebrate them all the time, and that's how you teach. That's how you remind people of what the expectations are, what the standards are. And there has to be a reward, but $250, $500 is not going to change anybody's life. But there's something tangible there. That feels good.
Feels great. We have a question from one of the students. How are you able to maintain the loyalty for your passion in sports, even though your work life doesn't always let you choose? So I think this person might be interested in sports, and his work life maybe doesn't merge well with that.
Yeah, so I think, and I do discuss it in the book, I think leaders, are challenged to communicate the purpose of the organization in a manner that fuels passion. Yes, when you run an NFL team, you have a leg up. But there's a story that I tell about three people working on a wall with bricks, laying bricks. And someone asked the first one, "What are you doing?" He said, "Laying bricks." Second one says, "I'm building a wall." The third one says, and they're doing exactly the same thing. The third one says, "I am building a great cathedral for our community to come and worship their Lord." Now, which one would you want to be? Laying bricks. I mean, come on, building a wall? Who wants to get up and run through a brick wall for that? But if you see the greater vision of what you're doing for people, I think about Amity Bank, which is one of our partners. They don't talk about being a bank. They talk about helping people and businesses realize their dreams. If I know that, if I'm working in the accounting department of the bank and we talk in terms about realizing people's dreams and I'm part of that, that's awesome. That feels good. That creates energy. And that's what leaders do. Uniquely position the purpose of the organization in a way that inspires passion. Just a tip to everybody: nobody cares how much money the organization made. Nobody cares. Maybe an investment bank would care. People want to do something that helps others, that helps the community, that fulfills a purpose, something, so that fires a passion in them.
We have another question from Sven. How do you keep motivated during the hard times, just as what the franchise is going through right now?
Yeah, so in the book, again, I've got a section on handling adversity, right? It's not hard to maintain motivation when you're in adverse circumstances because it's clear and present danger. And I lay out 4 things that I've found over the last 20 years that allow you to handle all adversity. To keep your mind right, keep focused, persevere. Those things work. As challenging as that is, I'm more scared of handling success. That's the hard part. When everybody's singing your praises, it's sowing the seeds of your demise. But we just naturally gravitate towards it because it feels good. And then we start cutting corners, right? Then we start coming in late. And then we get out of balance. And so there are 4 plays that help you to handle success, because success is a silent assassin. Adversity punches you in the face, and you have to either give up or respond. Only 2 choices. With success is silent. It's like Voldemort in Harry Potter, and all that, that's scary stuff. That's what success is. It's a distraction. It only takes your mind off of what you should be doing, because nobody's a success forever unless they maintain the discipline to keep going, to stay humble. That would be my answer.
So in your book, you mentioned loyalty a few minutes ago, loyalty over satisfaction. When it comes to building and retaining great team members, not only players, but throughout the whole organization, how do you approach loyalty over satisfaction? Yes,
that's a great point. And the way I position it is, my wife's name's Melissa. She's a wonderful person. So if my goal was to make her satisfied, she would stay with me until a better option comes along. That doesn't make me feel very good. I want loyalty from her. I want her to fight to stay with me. When I'm a jerk and I come home, I don't want her to say, I'm out of here. I want her to say, hey, sweetheart, what can I do to help? That's loyalty. And so when you think about employees, the most important thing to do is to ask. We talk about create raving fans, and these are things that have evolved over 20 years. So first 4 or 5 years, everybody understood create raving fans externally. I got it. We want to operate at this high level. We want to be on the extra mile. We want to give lagniappe. We want to make this awesome. But then I pivoted internally. I said, hey, accounting, IT, human resources, legal, you need to create raving fans. You don't have a customer. Yes, but you do. Your customer is internal. And so by using surveys, both broadly about the organizational experience and taking that feedback and distilling it into things that we're going to change and then changing them and reporting out on it and then coming and asking again, you peel back that onion where you've created a workplace that's completely customized. It's what everybody said they wanted. And then the same thing with departments. Departments going out and saying, how are we doing? How can we serve you better? When you do those things, you create that process, that flywheel of wanting to understand how I can make your life easier, internal to the organization. That creates loyalty. And then you get recognized as the best place to work. And then that creates prestige where you start attracting the top 20% of people. And it's this flywheel that just is self-reinforcing. As long as once you see success, you stay disciplined, keep doing the same things, because if you have the correct process, you will get the right result.
That's so true. And I've learned that being a CEO or a president of an organization, your job really is to help people do their jobs better and give them the resources, give them the encouragement, give them the room to grow. You spoke about the 4 ways you handle diversity, and I'm going to weave in a couple of questions from the audience. With a lot going on in the organization these days, how are you dealing, how does the organization deal with negative and positive media?
Yeah, so the media has a job to do. And you really have to unplug from that. And they have things that they'll talk about, but you've got to be convicted, have a conviction in your heart of the decisions that you're making are right for the organization. If you pay attention to the noise out here, you'll get so lost. Everybody's got a different opinion. I think about when I was a kid, I have a brother and a sister. Okay. And this is before everybody had an iPhone and an iPad and all that stuff. And you had TVs in cars. All we had was a radio. And we'd drive across the country. Mom, dad, brother, sister. We could never, the 5 of us couldn't agree on what kind of music we were supposed to have in the car, right? Everybody's got a different opinion. And the media expresses their opinion. But you got to be convicted in what you're doing and just stay focused. Keep your head down. And we have a phrase that we use, positively focused. In any environment, it's never as bad as everybody says. It's also never as good as everybody says. But when things are challenging, you have to balance out with positive the negative that you're hearing. The negative just can completely overwhelm you. You have to remind yourself, and I've got an exercise that you can access through the book called the Blessings and Burdens exercise. That anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll sit down with a sheet of paper, one side blessings, the other side burdens, and I'll go through, all right, what are all the things that are going right in my life? And I usually have 15 to 20 things, and I'm feeling really good. And then I'm like, so what's really bothering me? And it's usually like 1 or 2 things. And then I ask myself, do I want to resolve or dissolve those? And can I control them? If I can't control them and I'm not committed to addressing them, I got to strike them off the list. But assuming that I can control them and I want to resolve them, I create an action plan. And the next day, I just go about working on it. And it's just amazing how that mindset of balancing out everything that's going right versus what's going wrong is so empowering. And you can just focus on the things that you have to get accomplished.
Great practice there in doing that. And it's something we should all do more often, myself included. In the sporting world, I know that there's a high emphasis on exceptional physical skill and ability. Tell us a little about what you call this non-negotiable talent.
Yeah, I think when you're hiring people, it's really the hardest thing, one of the hardest things you do. The people issues are the hardest things that you do as a leader. And so if, in terms of people coming into the organization, I think it's important that we're crystal clear on what really counts. Everybody's got a pretty resume, and it's hard to, if you focus on what they did before, so often you can wind up with a paper tiger that I call, a paper tiger. Somebody on paper that looks great, but when they, it just doesn't work. And so we have gravitated towards focusing on 3 non-negotiable talents. The good thing is they're available to everyone. Anybody can do these things. It doesn't require any special skill. Number 1, great work ethic. In this business, the most important thing is working your tail off. If you work hard enough, you'll figure out what you don't know. I'm a great example of it. I didn't know what I was doing in Columbus, but I worked my tail off and I figured it out. And number 2 is a winning attitude, positive, optimistic, team-oriented. And all of our questions are designed to get at that. The third is, surely is a little bit harder if somebody's coming from the outside, is a commitment to the values of our organization. Do the values of our organization inspire you? Is that something that you're going to want to deliver on? Because if you're not, over time, it's not going to work. Most times when we have to make a change, it's because there's not a fit. It's like, you don't believe what we believe. And so it's not about performance, it's about fit. But I will tell you, we've overcome those challenges through a program that our HR team came up with, which is brilliant. It's called the draft class. So we have 12 recent graduates every year that come in and they spend 9 months. Now, you might be able to fake an interview or 2 or 3, but you can't fake it for 9 months. We have a chance to see who you are. And if you have what it takes, we're going to, no matter what department you're working in, we're going to try to find a way to get you a full-time job with the Texans. If we just can't, we're going to help you get a job somewhere else and wait it out until it's time to bring you back. What I call our boomerangs. We have so many boomerangs in the organization. They went somewhere else and then they came back because we knew they had what it takes.
Well, you're going to have to tell us more about that, how to get access to that. I know we have some students who are going to be really interested in that. But I do have a question from Jahan, and I'm going to expand on it a little. His question is, did you have culture shock when you moved to Houston? And what did you find most difficult? But I know that we bring in players from all across the U.S. And outside the U.S. So do you find that culture shock happens within the organization and maybe yourself?
I don't think so. I really don't. The way I look at it, during my time working with the partnership, we've talked a lot about the brand of Houston and done a lot of research with people internally to get their perceptions of the organization. And I'll summarize it like this. An executive had an opportunity to come to Houston. They asked themselves, why in the world would I ever go to Houston? And then they get here and their attitude is, why in the world would I ever leave? And so just getting people here to this town totally changes the mindset. It may have been Urban Cowboy that got us off track. You remember that movie, right? So everybody thinks Houston's still Urban Cowboy, or some people do. Internationally, I would say our reputation, particularly because of the oil and gas business, is off the hook. Nationally, for whatever reason, we've just had a challenge getting a universally positive impression of the community. That it's pretty positive, but it doesn't match the reality. That's a great blessing because usually the perception, once you experience it, it's like, nah, that wasn't quite. Houston's different. You have a perception, you get here and you're like, wow, I love this place.
It is really great. You'll have to convince my husband of that. He came from Dallas, that other city. So I know that through all the constant changes that have occurred over the past year, from hurricanes to COVID, the economy, to the organization changing coaches or players, how do you intentionally build and sustain that winning culture?
So in a sports organization, it's a little different than a normal organization. The two cultures, the culture of the football team is really dictated by the coach, the GM, the owner, and it can change when you have a change in leadership. The culture from a business perspective can remain constant over time. And so our culture, I would, from a business perspective, and we actually did, we translated it into behaviors, habits, because culture is about values, shared values, but you can't see values. You see habits. And so we defined early on IMPACT. We want people who are innovative, memorable, passionate, accountable, courageous, team-oriented. We recognize through our impact awards and reinforce that culture constantly. And so it's really not that hard, because once you have a great culture, a great group of people, a clear purpose that inspires people, when things are tough, people just hang in there and they just keep fighting.
So the World Affairs Council provides global education to thousands of students all across the Houston region and beyond in these virtual programming. I know the Houston Texans has a foundation whose mission is to be the champions for youth. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we first started the team, we had a foundation. We did some things. But about 4, 5, 6 years in, we said, there's a bigger game to be played here. We need something strategic. And so we went to our players. We went to our season ticket members. We went to our sponsors. We asked them, what would be natural for us? Importantly, our players were a big piece of it, because in order to fully support organizations, we needed our players to be involved. They're magnets for attention. And so they came back and said, it makes sense for you to be involved with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Clubs. And then Hurricane Ike hit, and there was so much need in the community, and our players wanted to do something about it. And so we teamed up with the Houston Food Bank. And so those are our 3 organizations that fall under the Champions for Youth umbrella. Our objective is to provide financial resources, marketing, promotional support, the involvement of our players, our cheerleaders, our administrative staff, throw everything at just a couple of things in hopes that we can help to develop the next generation of leaders in our community.
So I have a question from Bernie and Lauren. Bernie's question is, where do you see the Houston Texans in 5 years? Lauren asked, what should we look for in the coming months from the Texans?
Well, it's going to feel like a dodge, but I don't make predictions, especially about the future. So you never know. The good thing about being in the National Football League is it is the greatest reality TV show ever created. It's better than Survivor and Big Brother and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. Think about it with the Bachelorette. Okay, so Jim doesn't get a rose from Sue, and Jim goes in a limo and you never see him again. And Bill might wind up with Sue and they wind up, being together, but you never see them again. It's a one and done deal. So on Monday morning, each team will be completely level. 0-0, everybody. And you'll spend the off season preparing to compete in the fall. And so everything resets. That's why I love the Super Bowl so much. Not because of the game, because once it's over, everybody's even. We're back in first place, right? And then you go out and you prove yourself again. So I think it's easy to get caught up in what you're hearing, and because hey, they have to sell advertisements, they got to sell papers, and the sizzle sells, and that's okay. That's their job. But just know we've got our head down, working hard, preparing for next season.
So a related question, and then I want to invite everyone who's able to stay. We're going to open up the lines here a little bit, invite you all to join us to our, for those who can stay. I know some of you have indicated you're not able to. We're going to open it up, and I'm going to take a few questions, and we're going to each see each other. But one of the questions is, what concerns you today about the Texans?
What concerns me about the Texans?
Or what concerns you today?
Well, no, I would say, you can't ignore the Deshaun Watson situation. That we have new football leadership, right? I mean, we need to cut them some slack, give them some time to figure things out, and to build that bridge with Deshaun, because he is a legit franchise quarterback, one of the best in the National Football League, and that position is so important in the National Football League. And you're not going to hear about it. They're not going to make announcements about it. Just know they're working to build that relationship, and whatever challenges, concerns that he has, to get those resolved so that we can begin next season with him under center.
So I'm going to invite my colleague, Brianna, to open up the lines. Stay online with us if you can. We're going to stay for just a few minutes. There was one question that came in, and I want to make sure I get back to it. It was a great question, Jamey, and apologies. Let me just move over here and check out what was in the chat. And I saw it. And what was the craziest, most interesting thing that has happened to you while you have been the president of the Houston Texans?
Oh, Mary Ann, that is a great question.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it is. And it's one that I wrote about in my book. Okay, so I packed for a one night trip to go to New Orleans to play in a preseason game, and we're there in New Orleans. Had a few conversations with our TV partner ABC 13. Actually, I went to lunch on the Saturday and took the call from there. We decided we're going to do the game as scheduled. This storm that everybody's talking about, Harvey, it's probably going to miss us, so we're good. So I'm at the game, and I get a text from Henry Florsheim, who is the GM at ABC 13, and he said, "You have to read this." And it's from Tim Heller. "The mother of all storms is coming to Houston." We're in New Orleans, right? So it's 9:00 at night. So the game ends, and we decide, you know what, we got to move. We've got to go to Dallas. So rather than coming back to Houston, we fly to Dallas. We get in about 3 a.m. I get a call from my partner at ESPN. "Hey, Jamey, this storm's coming. We have a game on next week, the Advocare Texas kickoff, LSU at BYU, and the game's sold out. What are we going to do?" It's like, "Hey, I got a game on Thursday night with the Cowboys. I got to figure that out first." But so I'll fast forward. During that window, we sold 100,000 football tickets. We refunded 200,000 football tickets. That economics doesn't work. So we're in Dallas, and then on Wednesday we decide to scrap the game in Dallas. It was supposed to be in Houston, moved it to Dallas, take it back to Houston. I flew to New Orleans. We've never run a game in New Orleans, so we figure out a way to run the kickoff game in New Orleans. And then I fly back to Houston on the Sunday. So a one-day trip winds up being, an 8 or 9 day trip. I only had clothes for one day. So I had to do a lot of shopping along the way. But it was really probably the most rewarding experience that I've had since I've been here. It really stretched us. But to see the reaction of our team, that they never, there's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. And his number one principle is never confuse what you wish was true with what is really true. And so with this storm hitting, everybody's like, "Hey, got it. Wait, our plans were this. That doesn't matter anymore. What is it going to take? What do we need to do?" Everybody's stepping up. It was really amazing, gratifying.
Well, welcome everyone. It is so great to see you. If you'd love to turn on your video, we'd love to see you. If not, that's okay. We're going to ask you stay muted until you have a question. But if you do have a question, if you wouldn't just raise your hand, but you have to have your video on if you'd like to ask Jamey a question. Anybody have a burning question they want to throw in at the beginning?
We do have a question from a student that we didn't raise.
Okay.
He asks, "Did you ever have a bad press experience?"
A bad press experience? Well, I mean, organizationally, absolutely. You can't spend 20 years without having some bad press that you had to deal with. But for me personally, I guess, okay, so it was in Columbus. I was in Columbus, Ohio. And at my first year with the Columbus Crew, I won Executive of the Year. So I was the leading sports executive in the league. The next year, I traded a player that the community loved. And I went so the media was all over it. And that morning, the article came out, and I was speaking to a group of business leaders. And this gives you the context of it. This guy introduces me. He said, okay, so he's been called a genius. He's been called an idiot. I guess today we'll figure out which one's true.
I'm sure you were the genius. Anybody else have a question? I'm going back and forth between screens. So Ronan, if you'll unmute yourself,
Sure.
And after your question, if you'd move.
Hey, Jamie, thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you. And I think you have a really neat background with your experience with the Columbus Crew and then also the Texans. What are, I suppose, maybe two or three of the biggest differences you found between the professional side of professional soccer, running that business, and the similarities, say, them between also in the American Football League?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ronan. I appreciate that. So number one is everything you do in MLS financially, you got to put like 3 or 4 zeros on it. So much bigger numbers that you're dealing with. I mean, you have something that is the elite of sports and something that still is, arguably working for legitimacy in Major League Soccer. Number two is the games are different in their format. I love soccer, particularly when I watch international soccer because of the interaction between the crowd and the game, because they're singing the whole time and they're jumping up and down and they're watching the game, but it's more of they create more of the experience in the game than I would say in the National Football League. I think people are more traditional spectators here. And then number three would be the television friendliness of the two sports. NFL was made for TV. Soccer struggles just because it's 45 minutes of nonstop action. You've got halftime and you got 45 more minutes. Football is more of it has more breaks in it, more natural breaks. And football in terms of spectating, when you think about when you're in a game, all right, so if you're at a soccer game and you're sitting talking to your friend, with a teammate score and you didn't even see it and it's done and there was one goal and that's the game. In football, you have a play, okay, and then things die down. You can talk to your friends and then it starts to ramp up, reminding you need to watch again. So the social aspect of football, I believe, is the best in all of sports. So that would be my answer. Great question.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, I'm looking through my screens, so pardon me if you have your hand raised. Let me make sure that I get to see that. And Barry, if you see somebody who has their hand raised. Question for Jamie. Jack, thank you. If you'll unmute yourself, Jack.
Hello, Jamie.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Out of the last draft class, which one of the draftees do you expect to be the next superstar?
That's like asking me about the engine in a car. Because I'm not the GM, I'm not the coach, but I'm a big fan of what Blacklock brings to the table. Ross Blacklock. I think he's got a really bright future. The challenge is, there's so universally accepted that unfulfilled potential is rampant. It's going to be require that he not only come with his talent, but his mental toughness, his his work ethic, listen to his coaches, and really be a student of the game. And I believe he's got that, but that's going to be the challenge. I absolutely believe he has what it takes, but he's got a lot of work to do to be the kind of player that we expect him to be.
I tend to agree with you. Thank you.
Of course.
Ray, I think you had a question.
Hey there.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jamey? Thanks so much. Hey, taking it just in a little bit different direction, but maybe I think you'll probably have a good way to address this. Given this past year, especially the summer, maybe you know where I'm going, with the tense climate, for lack of a better word, in the context of the greater NFL, but more particularly the Texans and being in a diversity as Houston. How have you and the organization kind of handled all of the I don't know if you want to say political or the racial climate? And I think everyone will admit the NFL has been right in the middle of that and kind of being very public about it and outspoken. Just curious how you and the Texans have handled that here.
So that's a great question. So we've taken that very seriously. We've had a robust social justice platform for a number of years. People are surprised, and that we continue that, and we've redoubled our efforts, and we've engaged our players more deeply into it to help guide where we're investing our dollars and our time. People are surprised to hear, but I know it to be true as a former chair of the United Way of Greater Houston. The United Way, nobody does more for social justice, for diversity, equity, and inclusion than the United Way. I mean, they're on the front lines. And we've always been the #1 per capita supporter of the United Way in Houston, and that continues. And we feel good about that. The place that we evolved was internally. That our staff had really clear ideas of how they wanted to see us evolve. And so just before the season started, we had a set of diversity, equity, and inclusion priorities that we wanted to implement. But we were about to start a season, right? Everything has a season. Right now it was time to battle COVID and battle the rest of the NFL. And so we did a few easy things, some layups, as I would call them, and then we tabled the rest. And this spring, we will implement the balance of those principles and priorities. Also in the background, the Greater Houston Partnership has established a set of principles for organizations in Houston to sign on to, demonstrating their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are absolutely at the top of that list. I hope I answered your question.
You did perfectly. One reason I kind of brought it up is I'm with one of the major airlines that has a large presence in Chicago and Houston, and that's
and you're a partner of the Houston Texans,
and that as well.
And you guys have been awesome. You've been awesome for 20 years.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to try to continue that, even though the world is still upside down. But I've just this week we've been having Zoom meetings about the very same thing you just spoke about. DEI.
Well, it's important to us. Unfortunately, I mean, y'all have a gazillion employees all over the planet.
Right.
We're a little easier, right? We got a couple hundred people, and we've got one owner that can say yes to whatever we want to propose or say no. But they've said yes consistently because they take this seriously as well.
I don't doubt it. Great answer. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're trying to go back and forth in between screens. So if you would like to ask.
Hey, Mariette, can we I've got some folks who've just come in. I'm interested in one more question.
Yep.
But if we could wrap up, that would be great.
Absolutely. Great. I think we had, I know, I'm looking for hands. If I don't see hands, I'm going to go to Brianna. You had a question.
Yes, I do. So I'm also a sports fanatic, and I was also torn back then between like a sports management career and world affairs, but I made the right choice, I'm sure. But do you see more women coming into sports management, and what advice would you give them?
Absolutely. More women in sports. In fact, my leadership team is one half women, and I have so many very talented women within the Houston Texans organization. The advice I'd give you is just go for it. You know, the attitude has changed completely. It isn't a male-dominated environment off the field. Even on the field, you're seeing your female coaches, female referees, female broadcasters. I think that you know, we're not putting the toothpaste back in the tube. It's time for women to be in numbers balanced with men, and I think that's where we're headed.
Well, Jamey, it's been our honor to have you. I know you spoke briefly about how your fans, might communicate with you their interests, their wishes, their desires, and also the great book that you have, The Winning Game Plan. How do we get more involved with you? How do we make our voices known to the Texans, to yourselves? How do we get a copy of the book? Where do we go? What do we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I'll tell you, in terms of fan feedback, it's really easy. Fan feedback at HoustonTexans.com. And we respond to everything that comes in. In terms of me, I've become, against my will, active on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so all kinds of things coming out there. The book is available at Amazon.com. The paperback, hardback, and the audiobook is going to be released in a few weeks. Mark Vandermeer, the voice of the Texans, did the voiceover for it and did a great job. And then lastly, I have a website, which is easy, JameyRootes.com, that has a number of resources to help people in their leadership journey.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I want to thank the president of the Houston Texans, Jamey Rootes. Go out and get the book. If you have 2 or 3 MBAs, it's an amazing reminder of great leadership principles. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you will stay connected via our YouTube channel for other programs, and also stay on our website, wachhouston.org, for our upcoming events later this month. Thank you all. Thank you, Jamey. Have a great evening, everybody. Stay safe. Stay